Hello everybody. Today's project is a repair on this sunburst Parker. This lamp was electrified at some point in its history, and in doing so they discarded many of the original pieces. So I'm going to make some up. This door is an addition for the electrification. Originally this lamp would have had a glass door that matches the other three sides, and that's what I'll be making. Just going to clean this solder off and straighten out the top of the chimney. Should be rectangular or square, and it was hammered round to fit that little lamp part that they put in there. So we straighten up those and I'm cutting some old tin from this old tin jug here. And I'm tearing this apart from seam to seam so that I can get the largest possible piece out of it. That's so I keep checking it. The hammer that I'm using has a brass insert, so I'm not driving my knife with a steel hammer. That's a piece of brass that just helps protect it a little bit. So the entire handle for this lantern was missing. This is the heat shield or heat disc. And the Parkers have an unusual, at least for me it's a little unusual, disc that is raised in the center rather than being creased or fluted. It's a little 2-inch disc with a raised boss in the center, so using one of the holes in my bench I just raise out a little dome in the center. I did not have an original to go on, but a friend of mine who is very helpful and knowledgeable about tinsmithing sent me some pictures of originals as well as what I could see online. Appeared to be about a 2-inch disc, and with this raised center. My goal is not to fool anyone here. I'm not trying to make this lamp, passable as an original. For one thing, Parker would stamp his name on the rear door, and since I'm replacing the rear door, this lamp won't be marked at all. Just cleaning up the edges of this old tin. When you rip a piece out with a knife or an axe like that, it leaves an edge that's not clean. This is for the bail or yoke, I guess, that holds the handle to the lantern. And I'm just using an old coat hanger to make the wire pieces that tie everything together. Just straightening out this old coat hanger. And because I'm working on this lantern and you know, sort of making, there's an extensive list of parts here that I'm replacing. I decided to just blacken these instead of rusting them out, because I don't want them to be obvious. You know, I don't want them to stand out as obvious replacement parts. But again, I'm not trying to fool anybody. So I just heat them up here and hit them with a little bit of beeswax in order to darken them so that they won't be noticeable. So for anyone looking at this in the future that you know, kind of knows about these lanterns or antiques in general, they'll be able to tell that the wire was replaced. But with it sitting on a shelf, it's not like it's, you know, it's not going to look like a brand new piece. So it'll just blend right in. So I cut up some paper patterns and made some pieces parts. Took me a day. I spent probably a day just learning how to make these parts. The patent, Parker's patent for these lanterns was for a one-piece corner. So prior to this, lanterns were made. The corners were built up. So a piece was bent, and then the bezels to hold the glass and other things were soldered onto those corners. And Parker's innovation was to make a one-piece corner, so that once it was bent up, you had the lantern corner as well as the bezels to hold the glass all in one piece, and made it much simpler, faster, and also a little stronger. So all in all, it was a really good design. But I had no idea how to produce these corners, so I took a day and I just, in galvanized tin, I just sketched out various pieces, just playing around in the shop and working on methods to make this corner. So this is what I came up with. First thing I do is to fold the bezel for the glass, and then I bent up a little tin bar and I put that in the bezel so that while I am folding this piece over, that bezel is still supported. Otherwise the break would just close that up. So I start the bend and then use the break to close that bend up fairly sharply. On the original lantern, there's really no gap at all. That tin was hammered or pressed very close together. But on my sketches, when I tried to do that, it ended up sort of putting an S-bend in the piece that was not desirable. So what I did to fix that was just use this hatchet stake, and by putting the bezel over the hatchet stake, I could then hammer the back of the part like this, and that took the radius out of there. I don't know that this is the best way to make this part, but you know, in a fairly limited shop, it worked out really well. I got the bezel a little bit crooked, so here I'm just tapping the base of the curve to bring one side of it around a little bit longer, just to even it out a little bit. And here we can see the bottom part and its location in the door. So the height of these corners is 7 3/4 inches. I just sheared a bar at that width, and then used my back gauge so that I could produce a small pile of these very quickly. The doors are often missing on these lanterns, so what I figured I would do is go ahead and make up a few doors while I'm at it, and that way at least I'll have the parts to put one together. I looked online quickly and found 2 or 3 for sale that were missing doors. So there's a little stack of sides and my side pattern. This again I probably went through in a day. I spent a day sketching all of these parts, and I probably went through at least a half dozen of these before I got one that would really fit. So to make a lantern corner as opposed to a door side, I would just book match this pattern and remove a 1/4 inch out of the center. 1/8 inch is utilized for the door slide. It's the part that hooks onto the frame so that you can slide the door up and down. And here it's the same as the other part. So we make a fold for the bezel, and here I'm just readjusting the bar fold in order to create that sort of a hem, but just a track for that door slide to run in. Other than that, it's the same process. The lantern is not square. When it was originally built and soldered together, it was soldered together at quite an angle. And so rather than make up a jig to hold the door members in place, I decided to just use the lantern itself. And that way, when you slide the door up and down, you won't put undue stress or distort the original lamp, because it will slide along that parallelogram that the lantern itself makes. So I decided to just hold it in place and then build the door. I would like to reproduce one of these lanterns entirely just for fun, and I think that's the way I would do it. I think I would, instead of making a jig, I would just build the lantern body first and then use that body as a jig for the door. Here I've just ripped a series of 1/2 inch strips and I'm running them through the creasing swedge. The little bar at the top of the glass panel, it has a detail swedged into it, so I'm just matching that detail. And here again, using the lantern to align the door, I'm just sighting along the corners so that the corners of this bar match the corners on the original bars. I'll clean everything up. And sight locations for the wire protectors. And here again, because the lantern itself is unsquare, I wanted to make sure that I sighted along the existing wires. I found a piece of gas welding rod that was the same diameter as the original rod that was on the lantern. So that's what I used, and I've just cut a piece off, and I'm holding it in a pair of pliers here to make a punch. I did that for two reasons. One, it's the exact size of the wire so that it'll fit tightly. And then also punching it from the back with that piece of wire rather than a punch and bolster gave me a sort of a countersink to the hole, so it left an area for solder to fill when I go to solder this. And then I got really lucky and found an old die that gave me just the right diameter. I had made up a sketch with coat hanger originally, and this welding rod is very, very hard. It's much harder than the coat hanger, and that smaller diameter worked out just perfectly. It's just luck. So just polishing the ends of these wires, and then filing the bent section down so that they're all at the same height on the back. Certainly not necessary, and the original did not have that, but I just thought it would be a nice thing to do. And there it is. So now I have to antique everything and put the glass in. Thanks for watching.